Alright, so this is kind of a follow-up video to the earlier video I did about the wizarding Larp staff. Some people had a couple questions about how certain things worked, so I just thought I'd try to clarify some of it. Basically the idea is, if you're not familiar with the Nerf reactor, obviously this was the staff. It has seen a little wear and tear since 2 years ago when I first made the video. Give anything to a 6-year-old for long enough and they'll definitely do a little damage. But overall it's held up very well. So what we've got going here is a Nerf reactor inside it. Now for those of you that aren't familiar with what a Nerf reactor looks like, this would be one that somebody has kind of jimmy rigged on the end of a gun. They utilize the outer plastic piece as well. Now what I did is I used only the internal parts. Now the Nerf reactor itself looks a little like this. So I basically took off that plastic around there, that front plastic, all this other stuff that's not needed to actually fire the bullets. It's just the accoutrement, if you will, to make it look good. The basic idea is, there's a spring, you put the bullets in, and as you pump it, it begins to create pressure in the end. So you can see here that these two pieces aren't connected. So you can see here there's actually a little rubber end here, and there's a tube that feeds air up into that. So what that's going to do is it's going to allow that to create pressure as you pump. So you're looking at a few good pumps to get those spells to, fire out. And like I said, there is a thing like that. Now the way I had it set originally with this thing is the crystal, which was a ball in and of itself, and then was painted to kind of be a crystal-y kind of looking thing. That sat at the bottom. The crystal will actually fire. It obviously does spin because it has a bit of a issue with, physics. But, your original spells that we had, like the fire one, and there was a darkness ball I made, and that had some colors. There was a poison ball with bubbles, and a light ball, all kinds of different ones that I created. But basically those would go on top, and when you were done firing your balls, the crystal would pop to the top, and that would give you that cool kind of wizardy staff look. Basically the way this is put together is there's a cap, that a regular PVC pipe cap that was originally welded with epoxy to the bottom of this. You can see actually where I did have to re-epoxy it at one point because it got stepped on. So, it's held up very well, and there's a cap on the other end as well. You can kind of see it in the bottom. So that's actually how that was welded on there. You could conceivably weld it inside the piece there, and to give it a stronger, bond. But the problem is you have to it has to be sealed completely, because the air, if any air escapes, your ball's not going to pop out. So as you can see, a little battle scarred, still holding up pretty well. I haven't gotten around to fixing it up. These are the original balls. Basically, yeah, the crystal doesn't really affect power or range or anything. Everything works really well. The spells shoot very good. Yeah, it's fairly easy to put together, and then you use the glue to put all this stuff on here. That DAP weldwood, it takes time to deal with. There's like 20-minute drying times on that weldwood before you can place two pieces together. I've come across some spray stuff since then that's pretty good, but yeah, that stuff works great for adhering to plastic and stuff. And you can make a nice clean thing, as you saw in the first video. Just to give you an idea of some of the other things that I did with it at the time. Again, a lot of this stuff has been used and abused. But I mean, I built this helmet with, you know, plastic and foam and rivets, and he wore this to the Thor movie. One of the other things I built was a similar thing that was a pop wand. So actually you can see it shoots out. Not as much strength because it is a real basic pop gun, so it doesn't create a lot of airflow. That one I actually did have to create a really good seal because the original gun, this was the bottom of the gun and this was the top of the gun. I cut the gun apart and then put a piece of pipe in between the two and sealed it so that I could still create the air pressure needed to fire that out. Again, this one used to have the tines. It looked actually exactly like the staff did in its first iteration. Again, it's held up fairly well considering. I also built this. It was kind of his Thor's hammer. Again, it's seen some battle. He definitely plays with this one a lot. This one is interesting because you'll find out with these, if you do a solid piece of foam like I had here, this was kind of the first prototype, they actually really hurt. Even though it's foam, you'll mess somebody up with it. This, you can actually hit somebody full force with it, and it really does not hurt at all. What's going on there is actually you've got chambers inside. And then you attach those chambers with glue to the stick itself, so you've got a pretty strong bond between the two. And then you fill up the chambers with loose foam, like you saw in this piece here. And that actually creates a nice chambered effect. And I mean, really, you can just really just nail people with it, and it really does not hurt. It's a fun thing to play with. And that was kind of his Thor hammer. And then there was a Nerf sword that kind of got jimmy rigged because you know how those Nerf swords are; they fell apart. And this again has seen some rough times. It used to have an end on it here too. You know, some of this stuff I'll fix eventually, but, you know, whoever has the time. But, yeah, so, I mean, it's kind of give ideas of what you can do. And, I mean, if anybody has questions or you know, there's something they don't understand about how I did what I did, just give me a shout and I'll try to answer it as best I can. Cool.